If you have trauma and you know it, clap your hands. If you have trauma and you know it. Anyway, that's where this podcast is going. Welcome back to another episode of Girlfriends Without Benefits, where we are going to talk about all about trauma today, all about attachment styles. And that is my leading in. And Kaylin, take it away.
I could geek out on this like for hours, you guys. And to be fair, these two know it, and often they'll talk about experiences or, Jade will talk about things with her children, and I'll be like, oh my God, tell me more.
Yes.
What is this like? But tell me more about this. Oh, but what's this? Oh, and how would you describe this? And merely because, like, it is fascinating to me. Also, I mean, I did so much research and studies on, attachment styles and early childhood development and the effects of different environments on people long term. And I do just find it affects me emotionally, which is why I could never work in it. Because, like, literally just this morning, Jade was talking about an instant and it made me cry because I feel it so deeply inside me. But also, it is the most fascinating thing. And I'm like, I just want to help. Like, I know this one, I know this thing, I've learned about this. So it is a joy being around me, I'm sure, for Jade and just digging in, and Cass too. I'm like, so tell me more about the situation. Okay.
It is a joy.
And what happened?
Yeah.
But for the listeners who don't know, what the hell is an attachment style?
What the hell is an attachment style? Well, we could go like clinical level with this, or we could go like you and I, like, let's just shoot the shit version of this.
Well, obviously it's Girlfriends Without Benefits, so it's gonna be like you're
Shoot the
talking to
shit,
a
baby.
girlfriend. Exactly.
Basically, we all develop attachment styles in early childhood, and they are formed, as you could tell, from our parents, right? So how or our caregivers, right? Maybe you were cared for in a home that didn't have consistent parents, right? That would all contribute to your attachment style. So it all has to do with how a child depends on their caregiver. So what they receive, what they don't receive, when they're seeking, comfort, or if they need support, or how there are reactions to their emotions and their physical reactions to the emotions that they're feeling and their behavior. That all plays a role in our attachment styles. And what's very interesting about attachment styles is they are formed, or they start right when we are young, and those key needs, right, are met or not met. And those behaviors that we have are met with different reactions. Those kind of form our attachment styles. But then they also have a lot to do with how we behave as adults, and how we behave as we grow up, and what we feel, and the way that we act in situations, and the way that we act when we get into romantic relationships. Not to say that once your attachment style is set right when you're a kid, like, then that's just the way that you are, because there's also a lot of work that you can do to heal yourself, right? And to cope, and to figure out what it is that you need, or what it is that you didn't get as a kid, and give it to yourself as an adult. And so it's not like oh well, you have an anxious ambivalent attachment style because of this and this, and that's just the way that you are. Like, that's not it at all.
I have a question. So is it similar to, like, if you think of the love languages, which is people know of, like, there's not one love language that's better than the others. Is the attachment style similar, where there's like not one attachment style that's better than the others, but it's like the awareness and the knowing is like how to work with it? Or is there like a or do I want a specific attachment style? Is like that my pinnacle is like.
So, as someone that studied this, and now as a parent, of course, I want my child to have secure attachment, right? Like, I want to do everything I can do to provide my child with secure attachment. Now, there's a caveat to that, right? Because I can only give so much. So like I've read obviously a lot. I've studied a lot of this, got great grades in these classes because I found this information so interesting. And so I feel like I know a good amount about it. But even then, I have my own downfalls, right? I have my own pitfalls as a parent, and I do the best that I can with the tools that I have for my child. There's no guarantee that he has a secure attachment style, right? There's really there I can do my best, but I can't guarantee any of this because also my child wasn't with me all the time. He had a nanny for some of it, right? And so I tried to hire the best person I could. I tried to teach her what we did, how we raised him, how we did things. But again, it's like there are so many situations that you can't control. Even now, him going into elementary school, right? Like I can't necessarily control how his teacher parents him, right? When I'm not around, because really that's what our teachers are doing when we're not there. So I can do my best when he's in my presence and to form those attachment styles, but I'm not his only caregiver.
Yeah.
Right. And also add to that, that he has his own little nature and personality. How much time have we already spent looking at his astrology chart,
right?
Looking at his human design chart? He's born with an anxiety that comes from inside his little soul that he should be taking care of the world and following all the rules and making sure everyone else follows all the rules and right like that. And that's just the way his little brain works. And there's so it's also about that.
And then add to that manifestor energy of knowing everything, not needing to be parented.
So what I always find interesting though, so the majority of people in the United States have a secure attachment.
Really?
Oh.
Yeah. Like I want to say it's over 60%. I could be wrong. But yeah, over 60, I'm pretty sure it's like over 60% of the US population has a secure attachment style. So it's not like a rarity to not have a secure attachment. And it really doesn't take a lot to form a secure attachment, right? For your child. Like we're talking like basics, like when your child is stressed or crying as a baby, you pick them up.
Really?
Right?
People do that?
I know, crazy, right? Like little things like that. You comfort them. You're safe. Their caregiver is a safe person. So, whereas a lot of people may not have felt that with their parent, if they had a caregiver that was safe, you can form a secure attachment. So, like if you have a deadbeat parent, but you have a caregiver in your life that gives you that, you can still have a secure attachment.
That makes sense. That makes total sense.
It's one of the most common ones, even though we all have our own crazy. And I think a lot of people would say that their childhood wasn't ideal, right? But I think it's important to notice that.
So let's go from secure to insecure, because I feel like that's, if I was listening to this podcast, that's what I would want to
do. Yes. Yeah.
Or what's the opposite of secure? What's the quote worst?
So there are 3 types of insecure attachment. So there's anxious attachment, or like I said, anxious ambivalent is another one that you can call it. And that's someone who has anxiety or insecurities in relationships, right? So they could be really worried about their, romantic relationships or personal relationships, or come off as really like clingy, like really need validation and reassurance, right? There's avoidant attachment. So basically, like those children were taught that they couldn't depend on anyone but themselves. So they like avoid emotional closeness, avoid intimacy, struggle with asking for help. Cass is like, that's me. I am them.
In case you were wondering, because you guys are listening to the podcast and not seeing the video, I'm raising my hand and also framing my face like a very Vogue episode.
Yeah. And we're all looking right at her as the words are being spoken.
Yep. And the final one, and like this is mind you, like 2014. The like changes often. So I'm sure there's like a million more attachment styles, but these are the ones that I really learned about. These are kind of the core ones, I would say. But the final one is disorganized attachment. Also, it's known as fearful avoidant, but that's basically someone who had basically an unpredictable environment, right? So people that have that fearful avoidant attachment style, which is something Jade we've talked about, right? They don't have strong coping strategies, and they really struggle with dealing with relationship problems because they had, you know, unpredictable or volatile behaviors from their caregiver or a caregiver or someone that was supposed to be a caregiver of theirs. And so yeah, it's very interesting.
It's interesting because when you're talking about that, like avoidant hits home on so many levels, but I also have a parent, or one of my parents, I should say, that I feel like if I was just looking at theirs, it would be the disorganized. Because it was like, you basically had to suss out, like, how much did this person drink? Like, how many joints were in the ashtray? Like, were there any remnants of cocaine on the table? Like, so like I get that side of things too, but I'm just interested, like what I don't want to say, like, what makes one thing take over? Like, does that make sense?
Like, how would you fall into one or the other?
Yeah, because like I could see like where I could go to both, but like I feel like avoidant hits real home for me.
So it's funny that you should ask that because there are a lot of people out there that would just categorize it as I have an insecure attachment style and not necessarily put themselves into like anxious or avoidant or fearful avoidant, right? Because maybe they feel a little bit of all of those, right?
That makes sense.
Yeah. So it just kind of like the world of mental health is ever evolving and growing. And I feel like even now in the last 10 years, as we like recognize it and we, you know, give a voice to some of these things, right? We kind of recognize that maybe it's not like a box that you can necessarily fit into. Maybe it's more of a spectrum. Maybe you live in, you know, I have insecure attachment, but I live in sort of multiple of these styles, right? So,
and as we say on almost every episode, the most important thing is using whatever tool serves you to know yourself. Yeah. So I love that we are talking now about your college classes that where you learn psychology, and we'll go from that to throw that all out and go see a psychic. Like all of it can be of value.
Absolutely. It's not one thing, but all things, right?
Yeah. And I think that's just, it's hard. It's so hard for a lot of people, as we've been witnessing. It's hard for a lot of people to recognize and invite all the modalities in, all of the, to know that everything is there for them to grow and to heal. People just feel like they need to choose one, or they need to be stuck in a certain, or they get fearful of one versus the other, but it's all coming from the same source. So
I feel like from an energetic body standpoint, like if you think of physical, mental, emotional, and spiritual, people have one strong pull to one strong part of their their energetic body. So like there are some people who just do the spiritual work, completely neglect physical, mental, emotional. Absolutely. There are some people who just do the mental, emotional work and completely neglect spiritual. And there are other people who are just in their physical body on this earth plane so much and have been like, you ask them if they have emotions and they're like, no. Yeah. I don't even have that. Like I have my physical body. So I feel like even that being on a spectrum like makes perfect sense as to like where we gravitate to. But also like to Jade's point, like needing to know oneself, like you need to know oneself from all of those different levels. And there's so many parallels and synchronicities between those levels that like once you start diving deep, you're like, oh, of course I have this in my spiritual because it's in my physical, or of course I have this in my emotional because it's in my spiritual.
Yeah. So, you know, when in rituals and routines, that episode we talked about, like, you know, I specifically said every morning I pull a mind, body, soul card, because my focus every day is aligning the mind, body, soul. And it's hard. It's wily out there. they're squirrely. Like they don't like to match up. And so it can be a challenge, but it is worth, fighting for on a daily basis. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. It's so funny because after that episode, for the first time ever, I pulled the mind, body, soul card and I didn't like it.
Why?
I don't know. I pull my cards of past, present, future for my 3 cards of the day. Of like, what did I need? Like, what was my lesson from yesterday? Like, did I receive it? What's going on today? And like, what do I need to be aware of going forward? And
it's literally the same thing. It's just, you call it.
But like, I like wrote, I'll fucking show you. I wrote mind, body, soul to, and I made a frowny face. I was like, I don't like this. So by the way, you guys, if you try something that we recommend and you don't like it, it's okay.
That's okay. Yes.
And I wrote a frowny face.
I was like, well, never doing that again.
That is adorable.
So Cass of you. That is so on brand for you. I'm never doing that again.
But also it's that simple. Like if we say something and it doesn't stick with you, like I want you to know that like nothing, like we're telling you the things that work for us, that work with our blueprint, that work with our soul, that work with our alignment, that work with our processing internally and externally. So if we say something and you try it and you're like, that sucked, like, don't fucking do it.
Yeah. And that goes for anyone, dear listener, that tells you to do X, Y, Z, and you try it and you're like, but, and there's, trust us, there's people that are a lot more influential in your life than we are, obviously. Like, but my priest said, but my pastor said, but my, like, obviously my professor said, my doctor said, my mom or dad said, right? Obviously all of these people who are of influence in your life, it can be really hard to step outside of that and think for yourself. So,
but this also goes into then learning from a physicality standpoint, like what a yes feels like in your body and what a no feels like.
Cass,
totally
right.
There's another podcast episode
that
for a different day.
Yes. Write that down. Write it down. That's a really, really important. Yeah. We need
which I didn't know of for a really long time because I was so disassociated. And I feel like we like, this is a common thing. Like we don't know if it should be a yes or it should be a no for us.
Yep.
Not to bring it back to the psychology of it, but that's what I'm here for. That completely relates to your attachment style too, though.
Oh, because full circle moment.
To not trust yourself or to only trust yourself, right?
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah. But what's beautiful is that, like I said in the beginning, you can heal that, right? And a lot of that is just through like recognizing what happened to you and why and how. And then also surrounding yourself with people that give you that secure attachment, those needs, right? That support you, that are healthy relationships. That could be friends, that could be loved ones, that could be mentors, right? Like all those people can help you heal your attachment style and find and develop a secure attachment style or be able to listen to your body.
Yeah. Which is important.
Trust yourself. Correct.
Coming soon to a podcast near you. Amazing. I love how again another full circle moment comes through. Kaylin, do you want to give any other examples before we close out?
Goodness, do I want to give examples? Well, do you guys
grant you permission to use me, or I'm sure Jade would maybe be willing to grant you permission to use her as well?
Absolutely.
No, I mean, I think it's some of the conversations that the three of us have had in the past is just behind, I think in the notes, I'll attach the test so you can take the test to see what attachment style you have, because I think it's really cool just to evaluate, because you may be like, oh, that really resonates with you, but then you take the test and the test is like, actually, no, you have a secure attachment style. So even if you had those experiences as a kid, you may have healed them now as an adult because you found yourself relationships that were able to, teach you how to heal, or you did the work to, again, recognize what was bad, what was, not good, why you developed that style. But anyway, all that to say, we'll put the test in. But one of the conversations that we've had in the past just behind insecure attachment before you've healed is how it can hold you back from speaking the things that you feel so true in your body, right? So kind of talking about how you can know in your body something is a yes or something is a no, but because of your attachment style, you cannot speak those things. You cannot say the things that you need to say, right? Or you just have selective amnesia about people or situations because you don't want things to be bad, or you don't want a narrative to be some way. Jade, I don't
Ding,
know if you
ding,
want
ding,
to
ding,
speak to
ding, ding,
that,
ding,
right?
ding. Yeah. Yeah. The my children have a variety of these issues, just due to a lot of volatility in, you know, their dad, and also just the divorce itself, you know. Probably that's a completely different subject matter for another podcast, but a lot of you listening have either been, you know, your parents were divorced, or you're going through a divorce, or it's just it's hard. It's very hard on your children. And so yeah, it's something to, it's really important to be aware of. Yeah, and your kids. But yeah, it's like that my brain went in a million different places, right? Like I can't even like open that Pandora's box. It's too much for
Yes.
this.
And I think what is a beautiful thing about the Jade's children, and what we've really talked about in the past when it comes to, you know, attachment styles and how their behavior and the things that they do, or the things that she shared with us of things that they've said to her, or things that they won't do or won't say. And I'm like, oh, that's definitely like, that's this. But it's like, this is what you can do for them,
Yeah,
to help them heal from that. Right. So like, it's not like they have to be stuck there forever, or they have to live in that place forever. Like 100%, all four of them will find healing.
oh
And
yeah, and
100%.
are
Yeah.
100%. Yeah, no doubt about that. No fear around that, you know.
And even when it comes to Cassandra too, like for sure, homegirl had an insecure attachment from her childhood. Like no doubt about that in my mind. But through a lot of different methods, has definitely found herself, I would say, in a more secure style. Now, mind you, that doesn't mean, even if you find healing, that you don't have some of these behaviors that go along with an insecure attachment style. It doesn't mean,
Absolutely.
though, that you haven't, you know, healed, if you will. Like, you can still show those behaviors, but also know deep down that, like, I'm safe with this person, or like, I'm like, this person is safe to me. And it kind of almost gives you permission to kind of be yourself and do the not so cute things that you do when you're with those people, because you're like, oh, they're safe. Like I can rely on them.
Yeah. Yeah. I say that a million times to my clients. Like we can all come to places in our life where we feel like we've reached healing, like Cass with your insecure attachment style. Like, oh, I healed from that. And then something will happen and a trigger will occur. And there you are back again. And it doesn't mean that you haven't healed. It doesn't mean that you aren't secure. It means that this is your karmic journey in this lifetime, to just visit and revisit these traumas and these pains.
Yeah.
So yeah,
We
went all over the place.
Too. They're reminders too of how far you've come as well. When you hit those tests, right? It's like, oh damn, look how healed I am. Oh shit,
Yeah.
look how far I've come. Like this would have really thrown me off, but look how fast I was able to recover.
Oh yeah.
So
Love
Jade,
that.
have you taken the secure attachment test that Kaylin mentioned?
No, but mine's
Neither have
definitely.
But I think what we're going to do is we're going to take it and we're going to put our results in the show notes.
Oh, that's a really good idea. We're pretty sure what yours is, right? I don't know. Mine's.
I don't know if I went to secure yet. I guess you guys will have to find out.
I just chatted it to them so they can take it again. I've sent them this like 2 or 3 times, and I'm pretty sure it's in our Slack channel too, but I'll keep sending it.
Why haven't we taken it yet? Okay, we're getting off. We're going to go do it now.
We are. And we're going to put the results in the show notes. And if you're interested in attachment styles and where you fall, click the link in the show notes.